It all begins in Portland, Oregon. Picture a quiet antique shop tucked beneath the Burnside Bridge. The windows are glowing warmly against the damp chill. A typical Pacific Northwest evening, you know. And the owner, Kevin Mannis. He's the kind of man who finds beauty in forgotten things. The kind of person who sees stories etched into the grain of old wood. He spends his days hunting for treasures, lost and waiting to be rediscovered. One day, Kevin finds himself at an estate sale. It's a somber affair filled with the remnants of a life lived, the belongings of a 103-year-old Holocaust survivor to be exact. And her journey is etched into every wrinkle of her furniture, every faded photograph. All the items are bundled into lots, a jumble of memories waiting to be dispersed. As Kevin is looking around, he finds himself drawn to lot 29, among some tools and trinkets. It's a plain wooden box with simply labeled Mystery Box. And even then, as he adds it to his purchases, there's a strange pull, a whisper of unease that he can't quite shake. As Kevin's loading up his car, though, another attendee at the sale, a woman with eyes that seem to hold the weight of ancient stories. She approaches him, and she says, "So you got the Dybbuk Box, huh?" Her voice was barely a murmur. And Kevin, though not particularly superstitious, feels a prickle of unease at her words. The word Dybbuk, a malevolent spirit from Jewish folklore, stirs up half-remembered childhood tales, whispers of darkness and possession. And though he tries to dismiss the woman's words as mere superstition, Kevin finds himself drawn to the box, compelled to understand its secrets. Back in his shop, the box sits in his dimly lit basement workshop. The faint scent of sawdust and old wood fills the air. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead, casting long, flickering shadows across the room. Kevin hesitates, with a strange mix of anticipation and dread swirling within him, but he can't resist the pull any longer. He reaches for the box, his fingers brushing against the worn wood. Slowly, almost reverently, he lifts the lid. Inside, nestled amongst yellow tissue paper, are a few seemingly insignificant items. Some old pennies tarnished with age, a candle, its wax melted into strange contorted shapes, locks of hair carefully tied with faded ribbons, and a small tombstone, no bigger than a child's hand, etched with the single word, Shalom. It was a strange collection, imbued with a sense of both reverence and foreboding. Kevin sets the box aside, trying to make sense of its contents. His rational mind tells him it's just an old keepsake box, a collection of mementos from a life long gone. But something about the box, the strange energy that seems to emanate from it, leaves him profoundly unsettled. It's something more. Something that whispers of hidden stories and unseen forces. Something that will soon begin to reveal its true nature. So days pass. Kevin tries to just put the box out of his mind. Focus on the daily rhythms of his shop. But the feeling of unease lingers. It's like a shadow in the corner of his eye. He keeps the box tucked away in his basement workshop, almost afraid to touch it. One afternoon, his employee Jane, she's a young woman with a bright smile and an easy laugh. She's alone in the shop. The front door's locked behind Kevin as he runs some errands. And the basement, with its musty scent and flickering lights, it just feels particularly oppressive that day. So she makes her way down the creaking wooden steps, heading toward the back corner where they keep extra stock. So as Jane reaches for a stack of antique picture frames, she feels a sudden chill, like goosebumps erupting on her arms. The hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. She turns slowly, her heart starting to race. Basement's silent. The only sound is the faint hum of the refrigerator in the corner. But the feeling persists. A presence that seems to press against her, cold and unseen. And then the phone on the workbench rings. It's a jarring sound that makes her jump. Jane answers the phone. Her voice is shaky as she chats with a friend. And as she's talking, a loud thump echoes from the far end of the basement. A broom. It was leaning precariously against a shelf, and it just fell to the floor. Jane hangs up the phone, her mind racing. She grabs a flashlight, her hands trembling a little, and she cautiously walks towards the fallen broom. But before she can reach it, one of the long fluorescent lights above her head explodes. With a loud pop, showering the floor with shards of glass. Panic just surges through Jane. She stumbles back, her heart's pounding against her ribs. She just wants to get out of the basement, back to the safety of the shop. But as she turns to flee, a heavy wooden chair, seemingly pulled by an unseen hand, comes crashing down from a shelf, landing directly in her path. It's terrifying. The air feels thick, heavy even, charged with an unseen energy. So Jane scrambles over the chair, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She reaches the metal door at the top of the basement stairs, the door they use to secure the basement each night. She fumbles with the lock, but it won't budge. It's locked from the outside. Terror just grips Jane as she realizes the truth. She's trapped in the basement, and whatever presence has been tormenting her is now holding her prisoner. More lights explode, the sharp pops echoing like gunshots in the confined space. She grabs her phone, desperately dialing Kevin's number, her heart racing, her voice trembling, describes the chaos. Kevin rushes back to the shop, adrenaline pumping through his veins. He bursts through the front door, expecting to find a scene of utter mayhem. But there's nothing. Silence hangs in the air, broken only by the ticking of the antique clock on the wall. His eyes scanning the space. But everything seems to be in order. No sign of forced entry, no shattered glass, no overturned displays. He calls out for Jane, his voice echoing in the empty shop. But silence. Then he notices it. The metal door to the basement is closed, the heavy padlock hanging securely in place. And he knows, with a sickening certainty, that he didn't lock it. He unlocks the door, each creak of the hinges sending a shiver down his spine. The basement stairs, they're usually bathed in the dim glow of the fluorescent lights, but now they're shrouded in darkness, the only light coming from the open doorway above. He descends slowly, his hand gripping the flashlight tightly, and then he sees her. Jane's huddled on the floor by the phone, her eyes wide with terror, her body trembling uncontrollably, and the basement is a scene of chaos. Furniture overturned, broken glass scattered across the floor, tools and boxes strewn about, as if a whirlwind had swept through the room. Kevin rushes to Jane's side, his voice filled with concern. "What happened? Are you hurt?" But Jane is adamant, even furious, denying any involvement. She can't explain what happened, the events defying any logical explanation. The encounter ends with her quitting on the spot, leaving Kevin alone with his unsettling box, and this growing sense of dread becomes a chilling reality a few days later. And that's just the beginning. The Dybbuk Box has started to reveal its power, its dark influence spreading like a shadow, touching the lives of everyone who comes into contact with it. So the very next day, his mother comes to visit the shop. She's a woman full of warmth and laughter. It's her birthday, actually. And Kevin wants to share a bit of the day's joy with her, so he presents her with a gift. It's a simple wooden box wrapped in brightly colored paper. He doesn't tell her what it is. He just wants to see her reaction to this unusual find. But as she's about to unwrap it, the phone rings, and Kevin excuses himself to answer it. His back is turned. The moment she opens the box, a wave of cold dread washes over her, a suffocating fear unlike anything she's ever felt. Her vision blurs, her hand goes numb, and she collapses. A massive stroke stealing her ability to speak, to move, to even warn her son. They rush her to the hospital. Paramedics are working frantically to stabilize her. Kevin notices her eyes, filled with a terror he's never seen before. It's a silent plea he doesn't understand, a warning lost in the chaos of the moment. It's only later, when his mother is stable, that the memory of her terrified eyes fixated on the box clicks into place. The basement incident, his mother's stroke, the chilling comment from the bystander, the pattern is too clear to ignore. He realizes the box isn't just an unsettling antique. It's a conduit for something dark and dangerous, desperate to be rid of it. He puts it up for sale in his shop, hoping to pass it on before it can cause any more harm. A young couple buys it, seemingly unfazed by the story behind it. Relief washes over Kevin. The weight of the box lifted, but it's short-lived. A few days later, he finds the box back in his shop, left by the door with a simple note attached. This has an odd darkness about it. Panic sets in. He takes it home, hides it in his storage locker, but the darkness has already seeped into his life. That night, he dreams. He's walking through a sun-drenched courtyard, a place of peace and beauty. He's holding hands with someone he trusts, feels safe and loved, but then his companion slips away into the shadows, and from the darkness emerges a figure, an old woman with rotting flesh, her face a mask of decay. She lunges at him, her skeletal fingers tearing at his face, her touch bringing a searing pain. He wakes with a gasp, heart pounding, the image of the woman seared into his mind. He tries to dismiss it as just a dream, but then he notices strange marks on his shoulders, his arms like bruises forming beneath his skin. He tries to sleep, but the dream repeats, each time more vivid, more terrifying. He wakes again, his back now covered in deep purple bruises, the marks of unseen hands. He realizes the box isn't just in his house, it's in his mind, its darkness seeping into his very being. Desperate, he turns to the only option he can think of. He logs onto eBay. Feels like he's running out of time. But this time he doesn't try to hide the truth. He lists the Dybbuk Box, including a detailed account of everything that's happened. the strange occurrences, the illnesses, the terrifying dreams. He's almost hoping to scare potential buyers away. But maybe also to find someone who understands, someone who might know how to deal with this evil. Two college students, Sam and Brian. Their young minds filled with a mixture of fascination and bravado. They see the box as a challenge, an opportunity to test the limits of the paranormal. They purchase it without hesitation, their youthful curiosity outweighing any sense of caution. The box is shipped off, and Kevin prays that this time it's truly gone, that its darkness will no longer haunt him. But the story of the Dybbuk Box is far from over. It's just beginning. The moment Brian walks into their apartment with the box, he's hit with an overwhelming stench of urine. It's pervasive, emanating from the box itself. At first, Sam and Brian try to laugh it off, joking about the smell of ghosts, even start a blog, hoping to capture evidence of the paranormal. For the first few weeks, nothing much happened. But then they start incorporating the box into their wild college party, treating it with disrespect, daring it to react. The technology in their house starts to malfunction. Sam's laptop crashes, the hard drive irreparably damaged. Their watches stop working. The Xbox refuses to power on. Then the light bulbs start bursting in the middle of the night, plunging their apartment into darkness. The culmination of this escalating strangeness is a horrifying infestation. Insects, swarms of them, emerge from every nook and cranny of their apartment, converging on the Dybbuk Box. The box is covered, teeming with a writhing, buzzing mass of insects. The stench of urine intensified, now mingled with the sickly, sweet smell of decay. Despite the growing terror, they cling to their skepticism. Fueled in part by the attention their blog is receiving, they've become campus celebrities, known for their haunted box. But the darkness has begun to take a personal toll. Sam starts losing his hair, large clumps falling out, leaving him with bald patches. And then the hallucinations begin. And he keeps seeing this old woman, lurking in his peripheral vision. He describes it as feeling constantly watched, and, he can't escape her gaze, even tries sleeping in Brian's room. She follows him. It drives him to the brink of madness. Finally overwhelmed by terror, they decide they have to get rid of the box. They list it on eBay, and that takes us to another university in Missouri, and a man named Jason, who's the museum director there. He's a man of science and logic, but he's also fascinated by the unexplained. And he had been following Sam's blog. He was reading about the Dybbuk Box and all these crazy occurrences. And so when he sees that the box is for sale again, he can't resist. He buys it. And, the box arrives at his office, and he's very careful. He puts on gloves, he takes pictures, he examines it with a black light. He's like, I'm going to figure out what's going on here. And he notices there are traces of wax all over the box. It was used in some kind of ritual. So that just fuels his curiosity even more. And then he opens it, and nothing happens. He looks inside, the pennies, the hair, the tombstone, the goblet, and he's like, this is kind of mundane. Maybe this is all a hoax. So he closes the box, puts it on a table in his office, and figures, well, at least it'll be a good story to tell my colleagues. But almost immediately, things start going wrong in the office. His colleagues' computers start crashing. The IT department is baffled. They can't figure out why it's happening. The lights in the office are flickering and burning out constantly. And then, strangest of all, his colleagues, who had all been making fun of him for buying this haunted box, they start getting sick. They're getting headaches, nausea, and they just feel this general sense of unease. And so they start freaking out. They're like, get rid of that box. It's cursed. It's making us sick. And Jason's like, I don't know, guys. But he's starting to get a little worried himself. So he decides to take the box home. But he's still too uneasy to bring it inside. So he leaves it in his truck, locked in the back, parked in his driveway. And to understand what happens next, we got to picture his house. Imagine a staircase leading up to the second floor. Straight ahead is a bathroom, and then down the hall is his bedroom. And the bed is positioned so the foot of the bed is facing this large window. And outside, there's a street light that's casting this orange glow into the room. That night, as he sleeps, something happens that shatters his skepticism and plunges him into the depths of terror. He wakes abruptly, his body paralyzed, a cold sweat clinging to his skin. He's in that terrifying state between sleep and wakefulness, sleep paralysis, where the mind is awake but the body is frozen, unable to move or speak. He can feel his heart pounding in his chest, a frantic rhythm echoing in the silence of the room. And then he hears it, the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps ascending the stairs. Each step is heavy, measured, sending shivers down his spine. He strains to turn his head to see what's approaching, but his muscles refuse to obey. He's trapped, his eyes the only part of him that can move. He glances towards the bedroom door and sees a shadowy figure silhouetted in the faint light from the hallway. An old woman draped in a shawl, her face obscured. She steps into the room, her movements slow, deliberate, almost ritualistic. She shuffles across the room, stopping at the foot of his bed. He can feel her presence, a cold, oppressive weight settling over him. And then she turns, her face emerging from the shadows. It's the same face from Kevin's nightmares. The decaying skin, the burning eyes, the malevolent gaze fixed on him with an intensity that makes his blood run cold. She circles the bed, her shadow stretching across the wall like a living thing. Then she leans over him, her face just inches from his own. He can smell the decay, the stench of death clinging to her. And then with a swift, brutal movement, she jams her fingers into his eyes. He screams, a silent scream that echoes only in his mind. The pain is blinding, searing, and then suddenly he wakes, gasping for air, his body still trembling from the terror of the experience. His wife, startled by his sudden awakening, rushes to his side, asking what's wrong. He tries to explain, but the words feel inadequate, unable to capture the horror of what he's just endured. He glances toward the window and sees the first light of dawn creeping over the horizon. It's a welcome sight, a reminder that the nightmare is over, at least for now. He stumbles to the bathroom, splashes water on his face, and as he looks in the mirror, he's greeted by a horrifying sight. His eyes are bloodshot, the whites completely red as if he'd been punched. The events of the night leave Jason shaken to his core. The skepticism he once clung to is shattered, replaced by a chilling certainty the box is dangerous, a conduit for something malevolent that he doesn't fully understand. Later that day, he's sitting in the living room with his son, trying to distract himself with a mindless game when his son points behind him and asks, "Dad, who is that?" He turns slowly, his heart pounding in his chest. And there she is, the old woman from his nightmare, standing in the hallway, her gaze fixed on him with an intensity that sends chills down his spine. She's real, tangible, no longer confined to the realm of dreams. He knows he can't ignore this, can't rationalize it away. The box has to go, and quickly. He gathers his family, tells them they need to leave the house immediately, explains about the box and the terrifying events that have been unfolding since it arrived. They decide to take it to a rental property they own, lock it in the basement, putting as much distance as possible between themselves and its malevolent energy. He reaches out to Kevin, the original owner, hoping to find answers, a way to break the cycle of terror that the box seems to perpetuate. Kevin agrees to help, and together they embark on a quest to uncover the box's origins, to understand the nature of the entity it holds, and to find a way to contain it once and for all. Their investigation leads them back to the estate sale where the box first surfaced, to the home of the woman who uttered that chilling warning, "You bought the Dybbuk Box." They're greeted at the door by an elderly woman, Sophie, who reveals that the previous owner, the woman who passed away, was her cousin. She invites them inside, and as they sit down, she shares a story that casts a chilling light on the box's origins. Sophie explains that back in Poland, before World War II, she, her cousin, and their mother would hold seances, using a homemade Ouija board to contact the spirit world. One night, during a particularly intense session, the planchette spelled out a chilling message. "Release me, release me, release me." Terrified, they realized they'd contacted something malevolent, something that wanted to enter their world. Fearing that this entity, this Dybbuk, would attach itself to one of them, they devised a ritual to contain it. They took an old wine box, placing inside it items that represented each of them, hair, personal tokens, symbols of their lives. Then, with the help of a rabbi, they performed an ancient ceremony, binding the entity to the box, trapping it within its wooden confines. That wine box, Sophie reveals, became the Dybbuk Box. Armed with this knowledge, Kevin and Jason, with the help of a renowned rabbi, performed their own ritual, resealing the Dybbuk within the box. They then hide the box in a secret location, vowing to keep its whereabouts hidden, protecting the world from the evil it contains. As far as anyone knows, the Dybbuk Box remains hidden to this day, its malevolent energy contained, its darkness kept at bay. But the story serves as a chilling reminder. Some things are best left undisturbed, some mysteries are best left unsolved. The allure of the unknown can be powerful, but sometimes the safest path is the one that leads away from the shadows, away from the whispers of ancient evils that linger just beyond the veil of our understanding.
The story of the Dybbuk Box is a cautionary tale, a reminder that our fascination with the supernatural can sometimes lead us into dangerous territory. It's a story about the power of belief, the persistence of fear, and the enduring mystery of the unseen world that surrounds us. It leaves us with more questions than answers, but perhaps that's the point. The unknown will always hold a certain allure, but it's up to us to decide how far we're willing to go, how deep we're willing to dive into the darkness.
So the next time you're browsing an antique shop or scrolling through online auctions and you come across an object that calls to you, that whispers of hidden histories and forgotten secrets, remember the Dybbuk Box. Remember that some doors are best left unopened, some mysteries best left unsolved.
Indeed. Sometimes the greatest wisdom lies in knowing when to walk away, when to leave the shadows undisturbed.
Thank you for joining us into the unsettling world of the Dybbuk Box. Until next time, be careful what you seek, for you might just find it